Okay, geweldig. Okay. So yesterday we learned about the machlokes Rava and Rabba as to how to understand the machlokes Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel in our Mishnah about Neder Shehutar Miktsasai Hutar Kuloi. It all started because somebody was trespassing on his property and was eating his figs. And he sees these people from a distance. And he said, Kolchem Masurim Kikarbin. You're all also to have enough of me. Mine and Choshim should be to you like a carbon. And then as he gets closer, he realizes that one of these people was his father. Oops. So that's called a Nudish Kagos. We know for sure he didn't mean to include his father. His father's for sure mutter. The question is are the rest of the people mutter? We've now disqualified his neder because he never meant it, because it was his father. Do we say as well that the whole neder is bottle, which is what Beis Hillel says, or do we say that the neder still stands towards the other people besides his father? And that's what Beis Shammai said. So is it ganzen mutter like Beis Hillel, or is it only mutter to his father, which is like Beis Shammai? And the Gemara says that there's two opinions. If he changed the way he expressed his neder, even towards those who he wanted to maintain the Isser to. So, for instance, the words that came out of his mouth was Kolchem Asurim. In a klal, he answered them all as a group. And then he said, had I known that my father would have been amongst this group, I would have said, Ploini Asur, Ploini Asur, Ploini Asur, and not my father. So there, he totally changed from the whole wording of before. And we learned later in the Gemara yesterday, who I did if when he originally answered everybody, he said, Pliny, 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 Pliny. And then he says, had I known that my father was amongst this group, I would have said, Kulchem chutz me'abba. So in either case, I am being choizer, I'm saying differently than I would have otherwise, that I actually did say. There is where there is a machlokes Rabbi Kiva and Rabbanan as to whether or not you say neder shehutar miktsasai hutar kuloi. Where Rabbi Kiva holds hutar kuloi, and Beis Hillel holds the same hutar kuloi, and Beis Shammai holds lo hutar kuloi, and the Rabbanan of Rabbi Kiva as well. That's how Rabba learns. But in a case where I was maimed davar, meaning he originally expressed his neder as saying kolchem asur malai, and now he's saying the same thing. Now he's saying, had I known my father was amongst this group, I would have also said kolchem asur malai. I would have just added chutz me'abba. So there, zokt Rabba l'chumra. Nobody holds neder shutar miktsasai hutar kulai, because that neder is not hutar miktsasai, because he still stands by the original expression that he made. He just meant to exclude his father. That's the Rabba l'chumra, and we're going to see at the end of the sugya that's in fact how we pass it. Rabba came up with a kula, and the Rabba said, in a case where he moved away from his original wording, there everybody agrees, even the Rabbanan of Rabbi Kiva, even Beis Shammai agrees that the whole machlokes is if I stayed by my words, I was in my midvari, I continued to say, even if I knew my father was there, I would have still said kolchem, but I would have said chutz me'abba. There is where the machlokes is between Rabbi Kiva and the Rabbanan, Rabbi Shammai and Beis Hillel. Those were the two shittas we had, and we asked multiple kashas on Rava shita, and each time we dodged a bullet. So now we're up to the bottom of Daf Chav Vav Amud Beis, where we're going to ask another kasha. So once again, we just need to keep in mind that that's the machlokes. Neder shehutar miktsasai hutar kuloi. Does the machlokes apply where I was choizer for my original words? But if I was maintaining my original words, everybody holds lo hutar kuloi, which is how Rabba understands it, or is it like Rabba understands it, that if I'm being choizer for my original words, everybody agrees to neder shehutar miktsasai hutar kuloi.
What's the underlying reason why would he say that? Why would he say? I would anyway say, Kulchem Chitz Ma'amet. Only because it's easier to say it.
I don't understand what your question is. What's the underlying reason for what?
That he would say Kulchem Chitz Ma'amet if he wanted to.
Why would he say Kolchem Chutz Me'Abba? If he didn't mean his father, he should have said each one. So the Ran explains beautifully, is that if I say Ploini Aser, Ploini Aser, Vizal Aser, that's not so good for my father. You know why? Because let's say there's 50 people. While I'm listing off these 50 people, in Zvaisenach nicht, do I want to ask my father or not? By saying Kolchem, I'm going right away. Kolchem Chutz Me'Abba.
When you said that, it can be Chutz Me'Abba, Kulchem Asir. So he excludes his father before, and he didn't.
I guess that's not how people speak. I guess that's not how people speak, because the Ran, no one brings down such a suggestion.
I don't want to keep my father alive.
I hear.
But
But no one seems to suggest that would be a way of speech. So vice versa, that's not the normal way of people spoke. But interesting over, yeah. So talking about Esei Ravina l'Rabba. Rabbi Nosson Omer. Rabbi Nosson says, yes, neder shemiktsasei muter umiktsasei aser. There's certain nedarim that sometimes it'll be muter and sometimes it will be aser. Zokt Ran. I'm sorry, Zokt Gemara first. Ketzad. What is an example of this type of neder? Noder minach al kala. There was a basket full of pears, and he said, "I'm asering the basket on myself." What was in this basket? It had a whole bunch of different types of te'inim, but it also had in it a very, very expensive type of te'inim. There were also this very expensive type of te'inim that he surely would not have asked on himself. And then when he found out that this, in fact, was in the basket, he said, Ilu hayisi yoidea, shebenois shuach b'saycha. Had I known that these are the types of figs that was in this basket, not only, but amongst the figs were also this type of fig, loy hayisi noider, I would not have made the neder. So the halacha is, hakalkala asur, all the other figs are going to be asur, but b'noi shuach are going to be mutaris. But they'll be mutar. So you do not say, neder shoter mektsasai putikula. Achaba Rabbi Kiva, the limit until Rabbi Kiva came and taught us that neder shohuter mektsasai putar kulai. A neder who is huter mektsasai is going to be huter kulai even in this case. So what is the case? When he was chosher and he said, had I known that there was these types of figs, I would never have even made the Isser. My love, the Amar Ilu Hayisi Yoidea, Shabana Shuach B'Saycha, had I known that the B'nai Shuach were there, Hayisi Yoidea, I would have said, Te'enim Shchayrais, Uleveinais, Asurais, but B'nai Shuach Mutarais. What I would have said was the parallel case to Ploini Aser, Ploini Aser, Ploini Aser, V'Abba Mutaris, V'Abba Mutar. That's what I would have said. I wouldn't have said Kulchem. And even in this case, Rabbi Kiva, and it's only Rabbi Kiva who says that Mitayich Shorter Mektsasai Putar Kulai, Upligi Rabbana, and the Rabbana argued. So let's think a second. What was the case? The case is that I originally said Kulchem, and now I said, had I known my father was there, I'm translating fig language into human language. Originally, I said Kulchem, and then they said, had I known my father was there, I would have said Ploini Aser, Ploini Aser. Well, let's think about this. According to Rabbi, that is the textbook case where there's a machlokes between Rabbi Kiva and the Rabbanon, whether or not you say, but according to Rabbi, in this case, everybody agrees. When you're a Meshadna Dibure, everybody agrees. You say Neder Shotem Mektsasai Huter Kuloi. So how could the Brisa over here say that this is the Chiddush of Rabbi Kiva and the Rabbanon argue? According to Rabba, the Rabbanon would agree in this case. Zok to Gemara, Loi, that was not the case. That's not what he would have said, because the Brisa doesn't say what he would have said. What he would have said was Ilu Hayisi Yodea, Shabbanai Shuach B'Saycha, Hayisi Omer, Kala Kal Kala Asura. The entire basket is Asur, Ubunai Shuach Mutaris. But these figs are mutar. So there, in fact, he is not being Mishana Medibure, and that's where it's only Rabbi Kiva who holds. And that's where the Rabbanim would argue. So I just want to stop here for a moment and absorb a couple of things. The first thing I want to absorb is, am I pronouncing right? B'nai Shuach or is it B'nai Suach? Oh, it's with a shin. Okay, so I got that right. The first, right. Okay. So the first thing I want to focus on is the case where Rabbi Akiva was talking about was the case where someone said food should be meat to eat bread, let's say, every day. And they told him, had you known that there's a mitzvah to eat on Shabbos and Yom Tov, and this nether is going to make you violate those mitzvahs, would you have made a nether? So he made a nether, and then he had to have a Pesach. He had to be shoyal by a Chacham. And we say, if he's shoyal by the Chacham, not only is it mutter for him to eat basar v'yayin on Shabbos, it's also mutter for him to eat basar v'yayin every day, right? What about this case with the ashering himself all this entire basket? Does it need she'ela, or is it called like a nidrish kagos? And you don't need she'ela. So the Ran comments on that, and the Ran says, Yesh neder shemiktasei mutter u'miktasei aser. Nira li zok the Ran, the b'miktasei mutter. The miktasei mutter that we're talking about is beloy sheila kamar. So it's mutter for you to eat the benoy shuach, even though you said the kalkala zaser, that's even without sheila. Why? Very important, Dr. What's the difference between this and the case of, had I known I'm supposed to eat Shabbos and Yom Tov, I wouldn't have made another. Had I known there's a benoy shuach, I wouldn't have made another. Why, in this case, do we say it's automatically bottled? And in the case of Shabbos and Yom Tov, the Gemara says, the Mishnah says you need sheila. Dr. Ran, kivon sheyesh toos beikar neder. Shezel loy diskaven levenoy shuach loylam. When a guy said basar v'yayin, so he wanted basar v'yayin. Had he known that it would be us, he wouldn't have said it. But this fellow, when he looked at the kalkala, he had no idea that there were benoy shuach in the basket at all. He never intended to aser b'noy shuach upon himself, and therefore that's called a nidri tos, a nidri shkagos, and he wouldn't even need she'ela at all. That's the first question I have. The second question that we have to deal with is we listed up a whole bunch of different cases where he made a mistake on his nether or was sure on his nether, and in all the different cases we don't know what he says when he says, had I known that my father was amongst them, I would have said either kulchem asurim, or I would have said plonyu plonyos. Right? In each of the braysos, we didn't know. And the Gemara's kasha was maybe he said this, maybe he said plonyu plonyu. No, he said kulchem. Right? In all the cases, that's how the Gemara asked the kasha. So let's go back to the last kasha of botzel, like the onions. So what was the case? I'm not eating any onions, it's not good for my heart. So he shouldn't have made another on kufri. Now we don't know. Well, he originally said all but Solomon should be usher. He said kolchem. So we know for sure he said originally kolchem. But the question is, now that he discovered that kufri is good for him, what did he say? Had I known it was good for me, I would have said kol absolom chutz mi kufri. Or is the default, had I known it's good for me, I would have said this type of onion is no good, that type of onion is usher, that type of onion is usher. Kufri is mutter, right? So what is the default of the Gemara here? My love, the Omar ilu hoyisi idea. Had I known shakufri yofal leif hoyisi omer, I would have said kol absolom asurin. I would have ushered them all with a klal, but I would have added the exception to kufri mutter. Right? That was the havamina of what the Gemara asks him. That's the assumption. But look at the kasha that we just asked now. Here, the Gemara makes the assumption the opposite way. My love, the Amr ilu yisiyadeh should be the shuach l'soicha for yisiyim retainim shayreis ulevenis asureis and the shuach motoris. Why over here is the my love that I would have itemized, and there the my love is that it would have been general. Right? What's the difference? Why does the Gemara happen here azoy and here azoy? So that is Tosfos' kasha, and Tosfos has as follows. So I'm looking at the top Tosfos on the Chav Zayin Amar Aleph. Loi, v'omer ili ha'yisi yodea sheb'nei shuach b'soicha ha'yisiyom kol hakol kol asur. V'imtoimer maish no gabei botza. This all kedaydach the maksha. The my love was shomer ha'yisiyom kol ha'betzolim the gabei kol kola so kedaydach the machshavinon the Amar shchayros v'chol chad. The chiyah lazeh v'lazeh. for perfect question, why does the Gemara assume to ask the Mailav one way by Botzel and the other way by B'nai Shuach? Yesh loimer zak Tosfos, and I didn't understand Tosfos this way, but I'm going to I'm going to learn Tosfos the way Rabbi Rosner for Tosfos. Yesh loimer the Gabe Botzel mashma Botzel stama. When someone said that the onion should be also to me, he means all onion should be also to him. That's Poshet. Well, the kach masha kol b'shalom. But if you said this kol should be also to me, you're even talking about the figs that are inside. Maybe you're answering the Hanover basket itself. Right? He said kalkola, he said kola kalkola. He said kalkola is also to me. So clearly, we know he's answering the parish, he's not answering the basket. But he said kalkola. So therefore, the Gemara says if he's going to be itemizing, he's going to be itemizing the fruit, because if you say kalkola, if you say kola, that would be mashmois of the basket. So therefore, he would the pashas is that if he was answering the fruit inside the basket, he wouldn't have used the lashon kalkola. Therefore, he would have listed off each individual type of fruit. So it's just a practical difference because he's not answering the basket himself on them. Okay, so now we've dealt with all the kashas, and now we're just going to round up the subject. Mantana lahad tana Ravana. We've discussed a machloikis between Rabba and Rava as to how to understand the machloikis between Rabbi Kiva and the Rabbanan, or by Shammai and Basil, as to whether or not neder shehutim mitzvah hutakula. So now we have a brisa, and we want to know how we're going to understand this brisa. Because naturally, depending on how you understand the whole sugya, you're going to have to interpret the brisa differently. And this is what the brisa said. Nadar mechamisha b'nei adam ke'echad. So someone said kolchem asurim and hutul echad behen, and then he found out that one was his father, and one of them became mutter. Hutru chulon, they're all mutter. Chutz me'echad mehen, if he answered everybody except for one person, then who mutter? Vehein asur. Then the person who he said chutz to was mutter, but vehein asur. So how would we understand this? Zok to more ila Rabba. If you want to understand like Rabba, it would be very simple. The Reisha, where it says hutru chulon, would be going according to Rabbi Kiva. So it would be speaking in a case where I was mishana, originally said kolchem, and then I said, had I known my father was there, I would have said ploini aser, the abba mutter. And there, it's only Rabbi Kiva who holds neder shotim miktsasoi hutar kuloi. But the Sefer Divrei HaKoil, and the Sefer, where it says chutz me'echad behen, would be speaking in a case where he maintained he was maimed devar. He originally said kolchem, and even when he found out that his father was there, he said, I would have still said kolchem, except I would have said chutz me'abba. So there, according to Rabbah, everybody agrees you don't say neder shotim miktsasoi hutar kuloi. So that's how Rabbah would understand this brisa. And Ila Rava, how would Rava understand this brisa? Seifa would be going according to the Rabbanan. The Seifa that says that you don't say neder shotim miktsasoi hutar kuloi would be going according to Rabbanan, because according to Rabbi Kiva, no matter what, you always say neder shotim miktsasoi hutar kuloi. And the Reisha that says hutar kuloi would be going sai according to Rabbi Kiva, and sai according to the Rabbanan. Beautiful. Zokt the Heilige Ram. The Ram is march a little bit on the Le'in Halacha. It's a little bit late, so we'll maybe we'll come back to it. We'll try to finish the daf, and then we'll come back to it. Zokt the Heilige Gemara. Nidrei Oitzim. Maybe I'll just learn a little bit of the Le'in Halacha. I won't get into all the details of it. So Le'in Halacha Kaim Alon Rabbi Kiva. We pass like Rabbi Kiva. That neder shehutim miktsasoi hutar kuloi. I'll leave it to Basil. The neder shehutim miktsasoi hutar kuloi. But there's a machloikis Rabba v'Rava. So should we learn it like Rabba, which is l'chumra, or like Rava, which is l'kula? Because Rava is l'kula because he holds even if I'm maimed devarov, we still hold according to Rabbi Huda that neder shehutim miktsasoi hutar kuloi. So Dr. Ran, kivan di kolamemer d'hilchzik Rabba, bishum dehava Rabbi de Rabba. On the one hand, maybe we should pass like Rabba, because he was senior to Rabba. He was Rabba's Rebbe. But on the other hand, Maybe we should pass like Rabba because he was the later Amira, and normally we pass like the latest Amirayim. Nevertheless, Naktinon Kirabba L'chumra, we pass like Rabba L'chumra. The B'maimed, if he says, I would have said the same thing as I said originally, well then Kul Nasurim of a mutter. Then you do not say Neder Shodim Mitzasa Uta Kulai. Uvemishana, but if he changes his Nusach, Bein Miprat L'klal, Uvein L'klal L'prat, which means if he originally said Kolchem, and now he said I would have said Pliny Upliny, or vice versa, if he originally said Pliny Upliny, and now he said I would have said Kolchem, then Kulam Matarim, then the whole Neder would be Bato, V'chein Pasak Haramban Zal. And that's how the Ramban passes. So we'll stop here and we'll go by to the round, and if we have time, we'll come back. Now we have another type of neder that's not chal at all, that does not require any type of she'elos chacham, and that's called nidrei yonchin. What is an example of that? He was mother his friend, you better eat by me. If you don't come eat by me, you're going to be usher to have enough of me. And he became sick, or his son became sick. But the Gemara earlier said that would be a case of Nidrei Zeruzin. So the Gemara ended up learning, shot in this Mishnah, is that the guest made the host swear that he will have him over as a guest, and if he don't have him over as a guest, then he will not have enough from the guest, right? So there's the Nidrei Yonchin, not Nidrei Zeruzin. And what happened was something happened that the host was not able to host the guest today. He wasn't home. There was a nor in the way. He became sick. So that's called Nidrei Yonchin, and therefore the fact that he didn't fulfill the promise to host this fellow does not trigger an Isser Neder. Zok the Gemara. Hahu Gavra, the Atvis Zechvasa B'Vedina. He did a very weird thing. He had certain stores that maybe somebody owed him money, or stores that he paid up a choiv that someone was collecting from him, and he put these stores into Bezdin. And he told Bezdin, if I'm not back within 30 days, livatlon hanis chusoi. This will be bottled, meaning, let's say I'm tiny, I paid up, and I put those stores that I paid up in Bezdin. If I don't show up in 30 days, then I'll have to pay again. Why would someone do something so crazy like that? So the Ran tells us it's a very practical thing that Bezdin actually would pressure people to do. And let's see what exactly happened. Hi Gavra, Bigesh mi Bezdin. He asked Bezdin, what happened? Let's say somebody was wanting from him $1 million that he claims I owed him. And I claimed that I have stories that prove that I paid up, but the stories weren't 100% proof. So I told the business says, listen, you can't hack around, either being a raya or we're making you pay. So he said, do me a favor, here's my stories, but give me 30 days to come up with the 100% proof. And if I don't come up with the proof in 30 days, fine, then I'll pay again. Bezin told him, don't hack around. You have 30 days to present all of your proofs. Bezin is afraid that he's just trying to use it as a delay tactic so he can run away. So therefore, they put pressure on him. Whatever you have in your defense, you're going to leave in our possession. And then the Baldin told Bezdin, so therefore they're sort of pressuring him and giving him a deadline to come up with the goods. Otherwise, they're going to rule in favor of his opponent.
You have 30 days, you pay so much interest, and if you pay more time.
There's no interest here at all. Not interest.
My payment can go in there.
Not my payment, my rayas, my zechuyos. He wasn't thinking about payment, he was thinking about his rayas.
What's his point?
He had a star that somehow brought a raya that he's not mechuy to pay back. Someone is mooning him for $1 million, and he's up as a star that's a shvacha raya, it needs more raya, but it's a star. Why? Maybe he got a different choiv. I'm not sure what it said in the star, but it was a star that would have worked in his favor. So this is what the fellow did. And Isnis Voyasa. What happened is he was on his way back from Lakewood to come to Besden, and there was a massive snowstorm, and the thruway was closed. Boom! He said, "To you can't make it back." Omar Afuna said, "Too bad." Bottle Chusay. That we said Alba Chusay should be bottle. Our bottle, even though there was an oinus. Now we just looked at our Mishnah that Nidra oinus are not chal. Amalei Rava, so Rava asked, "Why is it you, Rav Huna, that you're so hard on this baldin? Onusu, v'onus rachmana patre, and there are abundant pater and oinus. Where do you know onus rachmana patre? The a girl who is nenas, Sanaya Murasa, who is nenas, is not muchiv misa. And if you're going to say, who said onus rachmana patre? We won't kill somebody for it. But in any other area of halacha that on oinus is pater, I'll tell you from our very Mishnah. But now nidri oinsin, hidira chavera shayoich alatzloi, v'chalahu o shechala b'noi, o sheikvoi nahar, hare elu nidri oinsin. So the kash is on Rav Huna. Why are you saying that if it's an oinus, too bad for him? So this requires a lot of perish, because I understand oinus rachmana patre. If you did an aver and you're an oinus, you don't get punished for it. But does that mean that it's as if you came? I didn't show up. I said if I don't show up, my rice are bottle. My rice are bottle. Oinus is shot. You don't get punished because you were an oinus, but that doesn't mean you came. So what is the whole Gemara's kasha from oinus rachmana patre of an aver? Even if it's another, so Rebbeinu Shalom will pater you from the chiv of another. But b'chalal, where did it make it like Tzitzis? So, as a matter of fact, this is a very, very big sugya. It's a sugya in Subas, because if you remember, we talked about Tanai in Get, and the Gemara at the beginning of Subas said that they were misaken that the Get should be chal mipnei atznuos and mipnei aprutzos. Because what happens if he doesn't come back? Tznuah will not want to marry free because she'll say maybe he was nanas. So therefore, they made at the kana that even by an oinus, if he gave a get al tnai, it's still going to be chal. So Rabbi Chanan explains there that oinus rachmana patre is not a din in what I said, that it just pater you from the oinish because you're an oinus. No. Oinus rachmana patre tells you that in fact the action didn't happen at all. That's what oinus rachmana patre tells you. That's why the act of coming or not coming. Either way, it's as if whatever it was that would trigger the chalois, it's as if it didn't happen. That's how it works. So because of this shaila of the fact that oinus rachmana patre means that we look at it as if the action did not occur, or if you were supposed to come and you didn't come, we don't look at it as if you didn't come. If that's how oinus rachmana patre works, so it's negated to a lot of different shaylas. For instance, we know that if someone cooks be'isr on Shabbos, that's going to be also tavanot from. Someone lit a candle on Shabbos. Someone turned on a light on Shabbos. I remember in yeshiva, someone by mistake plugged in the fridge on Shabbos, and they announced that if you wouldn't drink warm soda, then you could drink your soda to Shabbos. But if you wouldn't drink warm soda, you'd only drink because it's cold, then you can't use it to Shabbos. Well, what if someone was an oinus? Do you say, if it's oinus rachmana patre, but there was still a ma'aseh isra done, you just potter, so then maybe it's a ma'aseh Shabbos and it would be also? Or do you say oinus rachmana patre means as if you didn't do it, and then it would be mutter? Was that shayla? There was such a shayla.
So bring you home here. So if you say that's not done,
if you say it's as if it didn't happen, so then we look at it as if he actually came back. We don't look at it as if he violated at night. We look at it as if he actually came back. Even though it was ikfei nor, he didn't come back. We look at it like he came back. So it would be negay ma'aseh Shabbos. But you know where it was also negay? It was also negay in a very, very tragic.
That's a harder thing to say. Say that it's like you didn't do a mice. Okay, say as if you did the mice.
Yeah, but that's how the Gemara learns. That's how the Gemara learns. It's as if you didn't violate it at night. So it would be negay by ma'aseh Shabbos. I'm sorry. But that's not how they look. That's not how we look. Where it became again a very tragic shaila we had before, it was brought to the night of Yehuda. There was a group of people that were attacked by robbers, and one of the women who was an Ashish Ish there wanted to save everybody, so she seduced the robber, and through that everybody else was able to get saved. So there she was also an oinus. But the shaila is, do you say the shaila was, is she also labaila? I think the night Yehuda passed when she's a sur labaila. But the shaila is as well. What if the ma'isa itself that you did isn't an oinus, but you're in a matzav of oinus? So she willingly was mezana, but it was in a matzav of oinus. Do you say there oinus akamana patre, and do you say that it's kilu the ma'isa didn't happen or not? So these are all these shilas of how oinus akamana patre.
When she went to the king, she said, "Look,
that's right. She was an oinus as well.
no, this is the first kind. The second kind when she went to
Right. So the actual ma'isa wasn't forced, but she was in a matzav of oinus. So they cleared that as well. You see from Esther that she became also. Right? So they're clearly we ask. But this is the shaila of oinus. So let's see the Gemara weiter. So Frank Gemara, according to Rava, those who the chashar about the means are becoming also the because now because it didn't happen to him. Okay. Rava, according to Rava, my shna mehodetnan. Rava who says that als oinus, his chusm should still be there. Why is it any different from the following Mishnah? This is your get from now. If I don't make it back within 12 months, and he died within those 12 months, it's a get. Why is it a get? You can't have a bigger audience than someone dying. So he was nenas that he couldn't come back. So why do you say it's a get? According to Rabbi, it shouldn't be a get. You said, Patre. Me'achshav means at the moment that he gave it. So to Gemara, here it's very different. Why would somebody give a get if I don't come back within 30 days? Because I don't want my wife to, well, if he died, I don't want my wife to have to follow Yibum to my brother, right? So Amri, Dilma Shiny House, the reason why over there it's a good get, it could be that as well. But listen to the punchline, you'll see why I picked that. Dilma Shiny House, maybe over there it's different. The Avayadadim is, if he would have known that he was going to die, Min La'alter, have a Gomer B'Yom Kita. He would have given the get right away. And the Ran says, why would he have given it right away? Because where are we up to? It's further up. Where is it? 8 lines up. So he says, oh, here's right. The reason why I gave the get is because he doesn't want it to be an almana, because then she'll fall to evil. Surely, if he knew that he was going to die, he would have made a divorce right away. So that's why it's a get, because that's what he wants. So that's not an oidus for Keret. He wants that. So to Gemara weiter, so Frank Gemara, what about this case? He told his wife, I'm not back within 30 days. Lahavagita, this should be a get. Also, he came and he was right there. He got right there. He was right at the other side of the river. But the ferry didn't go. Amar Lahu, he told his wife, Chazuda, sorry, I'm here, Chazuda, sorry. And she said, sorry, husband, I'm out of here, right? So Amar Shmuel, Loy Shmei Masya. Why don't you say, according to Rabbi, why did you say Oinus? Who's an Oinus? Amai Valmain is Oinus. Zok to Gemara, that's something that he should have thought of. Dilma unta de Megal Yeshayim. That's likely that it happens, that the ferries break down, that there's no bus service to stay. So therefore, in his original Tanai, when he said this is going to be a get from back within 30 days, it was incumbent on him to speak out. But if the bus doesn't go, if the ferry is broken, if the flight is canceled, there I don't mean that it should be a get, because it was common enough. That could happen often.
Snowstorms above.
Yeah. So that's something that he would have had to. That's something that he would have to speak out. So there's actually a big shiloh over here. The planes were canceled, so his $180 ticket is not valid. But he could put $5,000 down and rent a private jet and get back on time. So there's actually a whole shiloh. Is that called an oinus? If I could have come up with enough money and I could have got back. So the ferry was canceled. I could have hired a private pilot. So most of the Rishonim hold that that's called an oinus. Having to pay an exorbitant fund to come, that's also considered an oinus, and we would say that it doesn't trigger the Tanai. Yeah, could be. Then there's a shaila. Then there's a shaila of another thing. There's a shaila who told him to wait for the last day. I remember we were once by Shalom Zacher in the boat shul. We made a Shalom Zacher, maybe it's Einikel, and Moshe Reichman was not there at the Shalom Zacher. Barry Reichman, the uncle, was there, but Moshe Reichman was not there, and he walked in like 2 hours late because he had landed right before Shabbos, and the cab couldn't get him all the way home before Shkia, so the cab dropped him off at Kiel and the 401. He had to walk from there. So everyone was saying, wow. And Barry Reichman said, by me, that wouldn't have happened. I would have left yesterday. So the question is that anointed as well? Maybe you should have left the day before. That's also a big shiloh. So now let's go after Rafuna.
What if the air conditioning in your plane breaks?
Rafuna, Michti. Let's think about this. Why, according to Rafuna, do we say that since he said if I come back and I didn't come back, so now all of his rayos are bottle? Michti asmachti, it's an asmachta. He would have never said that if he wasn't intending to come back. He had every intention to come back. If I go into a transaction and I have no intention of losing, so we typically use it for gambling. When you're going to gamble, you have no intention of losing. If you would have known that you're going to lose your bet, you wouldn't have a minute to gamble. You're gambling because you think you're going to win. And we know there's halacha smachta lo ikanya. So as an aside, there's actually a shayla halacha if you're allowed to buy lottery tickets, because it's smachta lo ikanya. So Rabbi Yashiv, Rabbi Vadi Yosef holds that you're not allowed to buy lottery tickets.
Why is it
Because you're gambling, and you're making it that whoever's who's holding the lottery is stealing your money, because you wouldn't have bought a ticket had you known you're going to lose. So it's all right. So the kuvidatas are, I'm paying for the entertainment of fantasizing what I'm going to spend. I realize there is such a fantasy. Whenever I buy a lottery, I have such a fantasy. But when the Powerball was $2 billion, I couldn't have that fantasy, because even I couldn't think how I was going to spend $2 billion. Even with my wife and my daughters, I still couldn't figure out how I was going to spend that. So I didn't even have that anua. But by a normal raffle, I think I have that anua.
That's what pushes me to
Here's a guarantee. I always say, talk about buy a ticket, because the chances, the amount that my chance improves for winning this lottery by buying the ticket versus not buying the ticket is a very little. It improves my chances very, very little. But I'll call upon them. Rabbi Vadi Yosef holds you're not allowed to buy a lottery, but there are most poskim hold that what does the government do with your lottery tickets? I don't know today, but they use it for the general coffers, which helps people, which builds roads, which creates services that governments provide. So that could be like tzedakah. And kula al mamoida, that you're allowed to buy at Chinese auction. Anytime a moed is making a raffle, kula al mamoida you're allowed to, because there, even if I would lose, I'm happy to give the money because I wanted to go to tzedakah. Shiny hacha, you want the cancer research? Talk about shiny hacha. Zok to Gemara. By Rafuna's case, even if you normally hold the smach lekanya, in Rafuna's case, you wouldn't say that. The mitzvah son is chuse. It's because Bezdin is holding on. Bezdin is holding on to his Taurus. So there it is kanya, because there he is more samech das that the Bezdin is going to get. Frank the Gemara, the mitzvah in lava smachti. Are you going to say there? You don't say a smach lekanya. But now we learned misha par mixes chayvay. Someone paid up part of his chayv. So I owe you $1 million, and I paid you $500,000, but I still owe you $500,000. So what I did was I can't give you the star. I can't let you hold the star because you're going to come after me for the full $1 million. You don't want me to hold on to the star because then I'm going to say that I paid you in full. So what do? You give the star to a third party. The Hishlish story, we give the star to a third party. The Omar the Loiva said, Im Einani Noisin Loi, Mikan Ad Lamajoim, if I don't pay up the rest of the star. So I tell the Shlish, if I don't pay up the rest of the star within 30 days, 10 Loi story, you can give the Malva back his star, and now you can come after me for the full amount. What happens if he gives man Veloy Nosan? The time came and he didn't pay back. Rabbi Yosy says, Yiting, the Shlish actually will give the star to the Malva can come collect. Rabbi Yehuda Amar Lo Yitin. Rabbi Yehuda was Lo Yitin. But Amar Rab Nachman, Amar Rabbi Baravu, Amar Rav, Ein Halacha Rabbi Yosy, Domar Asmachta Kanya. You don't say Asmachta Kanya. The Asmachta Lo Kanya. So what's the difference between giving your star to Bezdin and giving it to a Shlish? You see, when you give it to a Shlish, you say Asmachta Lo Kanya. So even though he gave his stars to Bezdin, why is it there? Who says he lost it? So tomorrow, Shiny Hacha, the Omar lived to learn Zchusei. He said, my Zchus should be bottled. And the Ram explains it very, very nicely. Elahachi Perusha is Dr. Ram. Shiny Hacha, the Omar lived to learn Zchusei. Koloimar, Shehu Moida. You're not being kind to anything. By a Smach Lekanya, I didn't mean to give this to you if I was going to lose it. But that's not, over here, I'm not giving you anything. All I said was, Koloimar Shehu Moida, Shehu Moloi Ba, La'is's man. This fellow said, if I don't come back within 30 days to verify my rayas to Bezdin, it's merely a haidah that his rayas were sheker. So where do you say smachta loikanya? It doesn't change ownership from me to you because I didn't mean to. But if it's merely me being moida, that my rayas are no good, and I said if I'm not back within 30 days, I'm being moida, and my rayas are sheker, that avada wouldn't be subject to the restriction of a smachta loikanya. The hilchos, what is halach l'maisa? A smachta kanya, the smachta is kanya, but would lie honest. But that's only if it's not an honest. Because if it's an honest that I couldn't come back, then the action is not kal. We don't say that you've triggered the chalois, and who the kani minei bebest nechashiv. Also, a smachta only works if there was a kinyan in the best nechashiv, just like there was in Rav Huna's case, where when you gave your rice over to Bezdin, Bezdin made a kinyan, and it was a Bezdin choshev, and there's a whole shiloh what a Bezdin choshev means. Only there will you say that, in fact, the kinyan works. And let's see quickly a little part of the Ram. With the kanim in Bezdin choshev, Kloimer alim lefkuim amayna. It's a strong enough kinyan even to be mighty money. Who going beidina there of Ami Ravasi, who have smicha, who are mumchas, but they don't have smicha. The shaloi chediver Ramamzal shehitzrich samuch. He held that the bezin has to be samuch as well. The imkid varav zokt around. If we would pass like the Rambam, hayoloi loimer, the Gemara should have said the bezin mumcha. It doesn't say the bezin mumcha. It says bezin choshev. Bezin choshev doesn't necessarily mean that there was smicha. Okay, let's stop here, and we'll be mamshech bezin tomorrow.
I mean, so the three criteria. But you look at those battles down the Zechisim is not the same as the Hishlish.
As a kinyan.
So yeah, something goes up. As when it's a smachti your koinizam, it's like a kinyan. I talk about the
In the case where I gave it to Bezdin I gave the rise to Bezdin. I said if I don't come back, the rise or not rise, only there do we say it would work. In the half of the Gemara, that was in the half of the Gemara, correct. But the Maskuna of the Gemara retracts from that.
But then passt man das ist ja auch. Ich habe verstanden, es sind zwei andere Maßen. Wir, he had to bring rayas that whatever his star is good. But the second one, it didn't have to.
What's the second one? What do you mean by the
cash,
but the story, but his
he
story.
actually paid. He's not going to be rayas. Now he has to bring the second part. So
Correct.
It's not the same thing.
That's correct. It's not the same thing. That's right.
So it looked with an hilchos out of us.
Halacha l'maisa that if you were kind of if it was kind of in best in choshev, then you say asmach tekanya.
On which maisa?
In all the cases, even in the case of Hishla story, but Hishla story is not a case of Vezin. If it was Hishla story of Vezin, and Sure it is. If I don't pay you back within 30 days, then if I don't pay you back the rest of the money within 30 days,
Then I owe you.
I owe you the whole thing. I owe you the whole thing. So that's an
Look,
asmachta.
I owe you. I really owe you. I owe you.
That's a very, very good ha'ar you're bringing up. It's a very good ha'ar you're bringing up. And the Ran actually specifically asked that kasha. So let's look at the Ran inside. How can I say I owe you? I don't owe you. I paid you. Yeah. Very good kasha. So let's see. Let's see what the Ran says over here. The Ran says over here. Pirush Rashi's out. Let's go back over here. V'hanami the mishapar mixes chayvay the isay la'il b'samuch muchachachi. The vadai that even if you're being moichel, it shouldn't work. The vadai hutanoi mitarsh mechila. The case of the shishlish story has to be working with mechila. The Eloi was not working with mechila. He the sphere Rabbi Yosy. That's machtakanya. Even though Rabbi Yosy that's machtakanya, still hey chiyig bezeh kol ashtar. Once I paid you half, how could the Malva now collect it all again? Just because I tell the shlish to give back the star? How does it fabricate a new chiv to pay? Just because I say you can give him back the star, where do I become a chiv to pay extra? Right? Isn't that what you're asking?
So it says,
I'm sorry?
Just like it takes away a nice thing. If you could do something and it takes it away, as if
so he's
Elavadai mitchila. So how did he learn that? Elavadai mitchila kachisna. So what was it tonight? That im loy nasati lo chashar mikan v'shloshim yoim. If I don't pay you back in full, lo yehem moish eli proin. The half that I paid should not be considered a payment on the chayv. Elamatana. Why would it be ribis? No, that ribis is not if I pay you back more. Ribis is only if it is money that I'm paying you for the use of your money. As a matter of fact, I just had to sign a contract with the Freie company, and the company and the contract says that if they don't pay me within 30 days, then they have to pay me 2%. They have to pay me 2% per month. I don't know exactly what it is to pay me. So I thought that's ribis. So I don't want to go change the contract, even though I'm going to change it to their benefit. They don't have to pay me ribis, but I want to know if I have to change it. So there is, of course you have to change it. That's not ribis. If you say that there's a late payment charge of 2% per month, that's not ribis. It's only ribis if you say that I'm going to charge you interest if you don't pay within 30 days. I'm going to charge you 2% interest on the chayv. But if it's a late payment charge, no problem. It's not ribis at all. Don't modify the contract. That's what Rabbi told me.
Again,
Because ribis is only if it's interest